Hi, my name is Judy Firestein. I live in Jerusalem. I made Aliyah almost 25 years ago, and I'm responsible for having trained over 2,000 English-speaking new immigrants in Israel in the last few years, all of whom were interested in learning how to become self-employed here in Israel. So I'd like to begin by sharing with you what we call the profile of a successful entrepreneur here in Israel. There are 8 characteristics. If you have half of them, I would say you have a green light to go ahead and pursue self-employment as an option. The first aspect of successful entrepreneurs here in Israel is that they take total responsibility for all the things that go well and for all the things that don't go well, even things that are beyond their control. That takes a lot of courage. 2, one has to be an independent type of personality, as opposed to a more dependent type. You're your own boss, you're your own supervisor, you hold staff meetings with yourself, and you give yourself instructions as to what you need to do, how, and when. The third attribute is that of creativity. To succeed in business in Israel, one needs to be totally creative, inventive, and to think out of the box. This is essential because so many entrepreneurs are competing for the same piece of the pie that you want to be different. Israelis really appreciate that. 4, it takes a huge amount of flexibility to succeed in business in Israel. Things here are constantly changing, and one has to keep up with the literature, with standards, and with the competition. One also has to keep up with the changing times, the changing demographics, and the changing geopolitical situation. So flexibility is an absolute must. 5, one needs to have a lot of endurance. We call that in Israel taking a very long view of things. You need to breathe slowly and over a long period of time, because growing a business is a slow process and one needs to hang in there for the long haul. 6, someone succeeding in business in Israel is typically an ambitious personality type, someone who doesn't mind the competition but rather thrives on it, someone who enjoys the challenges even though they can be sometimes very difficult, someone who really seeks to achieve and who thrives on success. And then 7, to succeed in business here in Israel, you need to have a certain amount of vision to be able to anticipate and imagine how things are going to go, and to be able to reinvent yourself constantly. And last, 8, to succeed in business in Israel, one needs to be a healthy person who conducts a healthy lifestyle. That's not easy with all of the stress and pressure of living here, but it certainly is worth the challenge. Many of the individuals in our courses ask, is it really preferable to be a salaried employee, or is it better to open up my own business? So here are some thoughts that can help you in making that decision. What are the advantages of being self-employed in Israel? I'd like to present several findings from research that has been conducted in Israel on this issue. First point is that Israelis who are self-employed have a higher income than salaried workers in the same industry. So those who make it and who become successfully self-employed clearly have a much higher lifestyle and enjoy the benefits of their economic success. Second, self-employed individuals in Israel have gained a sense of control and mastery over their own destinies. They enjoy being able to choose their own lifestyle, how they spend their time, and they feel that they are sitting in the driver's seat rather than being driven by someone else. Anyone who's worked for a boss knows what I mean. Third, Israelis who are self-employed experience an enhanced level of self-esteem. They're proud of themselves. They feel good about themselves, that they've been able to succeed in such a competitive world. Next, I would say that for many Israelis, being able to integrate the roles of both breadwinner and also parent is very important. Furthermore, being able to work for oneself gives one an opportunity to bring self-expression to one's work, rather than being salaried and being limited in how much one can express oneself through one's work. And another positive aspect of self-employment is the personal challenge that so many of us who are self-employed enjoy as a result of our work. Finally, being self-employed enables one to pursue one's own interests in a much more thorough way than those who are self-employed. So there are many pluses in Israel, as elsewhere, to being self-employed. However, on the other side of the scale, there are also some disadvantages, and I think it only right that we share those too. First, one should be aware that your income will be unsteady. If you're relying on your income from self-employment as the only source of income, be aware that it will vacillate greatly from month to month, from season to season. This is partly a function of the Jewish calendar year and can even be affected by the weather. So one should not anticipate a steady income, as do those who are salaried. Being self-employed requires a high degree of self-discipline, a great deal of initiative, a high level of motivation, and a good dosage of self-confidence. That can be really tough for a new immigrant who feels that the language is a disadvantage and who doesn't necessarily understand all the cross-cultural cues. Having a lack of colleagues can be professionally and socially isolating for a new immigrant wrestling with cross-cultural codes and a lack of language skills. And one can certainly find that missing the feedback from those colleagues can be a serious loss. Being self-employed is a huge responsibility, and along with that comes a high level of stress. So anyone who's looking for a stress-free solution to their employment options won't want to go down this lane. There are many ups and downs in self-employment in Israel, and one needs to be prepared for that both psychologically and economically. You may want to weigh your options, compare the advantages and disadvantages, and see which list is closer to your heart. In addition to being a business mentor, I'm also involved with the Israel Business Connection as a volunteer.